أهلا وسهلا فيكم بحلقة جديدة من بودكاست Between Us بيناتنا. اسمحوا لي اليوم أتحدث باللغة الإنجليزية because I have a very special guest, a friend, a clinical psychologist, Naiha Chaudry. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited. Thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely.
Today we are going to talk about a very important topic, yet not a lot of people take take it into consideration, which
Mm.
is mental health. So when we talk about mental health, what are we really talking about?
I love that question. Everyone always talks about mental health, but I think we get confused about what it is. Sometimes we just think, okay, well, I have mental health because nothing is going wrong. But mental health is really about practicing resilience. It's about making sure that we have the ability to cope with things that are going to be hard about life. I think that's what it is at the end of the day.
And life is very hard.
Life is hard. I think we have to accept that, right? There's no getting around that. It's hard.
So a lot of people feel there's something must be wrong when they are not okay. Why
Mhm.
do you think they feel that?
I think there's a lot of stigma around saying that we're not okay. I think sometimes, especially in our culture,
Mhm.
if we say that we're not okay, that means that we're admitting to something being wrong with us. We're as if it's a big fault in us, but that's not usually the case. When we say we're not okay, we're actually showing strength because we are allowing other people into our space to help us. And that is hard to do. So that, yeah.
It's very hard for someone to admit that they are not okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about myself and others. I don't like to show my vulnerability to anyone.
Yeah.
So what can we do about that?
I think first we need to understand the reason, right? Like
Definitely, yeah. What's the reason
what's
behind it?
right. So where are you from?
Uh, Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm from Pakistan, right?
yeah.
We have the most beautiful cultures, but part of that means that our cultures are super prideful.
Mhm.
We are super proud people. So when we say that we're not okay, we might feel like we're dishonoring that pride.
Mhm.
It might feel like I'm saying that my life isn't good enough. I'm not doing good enough. The circumstances are not good enough. I'm doing something wrong. But that's not true. Because it's not about the pride. It's about the strength of admitting that we need help.
And part of it, I think it's because we are afraid people judging us.
That was going to be the second part. So again, it comes down to pride, right? So then if we're saying we're not okay, we're asking our community to make space for us.
Mm.
But then when it's always about strength and weakness, it's really hard for us to find that space. And
Mm.
that's why we're having these conversations so that
Definitely.
we can change that.
Can someone struggle mentally without having a mental illness?
Absolutely. I struggle all the time. No, of course we can because mental illness is let's come back to physical health, right? Like we can get a cold without having a serious health complication, right? There's differences. There's chronic illnesses, there's short-term illnesses.
Yeah.
So sometimes we can feel the same way with mental health. Our mental health can be in a low place and we can work on it and we get better the same way we kind of recover from a cold.
Mm.
It's not necessarily the same thing as having a long-term complicated illness. So absolutely. It just means that we need to figure out the skills to get better.
Speaking about physical health,
Mm.
people they always tend to focus on physical health
Yeah.
and forget about their mental health.
Yeah.
Especially our parents, the older generation,
Yes.
like they can do 100 things
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, but they forget about their mental health.
Yeah.
Mental health. Sorry. So what can we do about that?
The same thing I think we need to talk to them about it. I think that only in the last like 50 years, if that, we're seeing these conversations
Mm.
happening. Like even when we were younger, we weren't discussing these things,
And
right?
yeah.
So when I think about them, they were discussing it even less. So today, if we go and we ask our parents or our grandparents, like, how did you feel about this? They'll be like, what do you mean?
Mm,
So, one of the big things that I always believe that we can do is we can teach the language of emotion, right? We can give them the words. Like, one of the things that really give us power for mental health is knowing how to name our emotions. Having those conversations with our elders about, well, when you went through this war, I bet it felt like this.
mm.
And I think that would allow them to connect to those experiences. And then again, once they learn how to connect to the emotions, hopefully it could bring some small change.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And nowadays, like, awareness is everywhere. They
Yeah.
can go to YouTube, they can ask a friend. I'm asking
Yeah.
a specialist. So it's everywhere. Some people, they say, I'm just tired.
Mm.
It's just stress.
Yeah.
Do you think this is healthy?
Well, I'm
Yeah,
just
sometimes
tired,
it's
it's
deeper than
stress.
that, right?
It can be, but it's always about, does the person who's saying it know that it's deeper? It's always about that
Mm,
self-awareness. So sometimes we say we're tired, we're stressed, but we don't know what's going on underneath because we're not giving that part of our brain and body the time, right? Unfortunately, life is so fast-paced,
yeah.
like especially here in the UAE,
And
it's so fast.
Dubai.
Dubai. It's so fast-paced. There's so much, like, just a lot of information coming in. So we don't even realize what we're tired or stressed about. So I think it just comes back to having more time to reflect.
Definitely. And you know, especially at night,
Mm.
like when I put my head on the pillow, I
Mhm.
just want to sleep. I have work the next day.
Mhm.
I don't sleep like after 3, 4 hours
I
because I'm
yeah.
overthinker. I
Okay.
overthink. And so why people overthink at night more than the morning?
Well, first of all, you probably have time. Especially when we're about to sleep, we kind of have a little mental break where we don't have to be doing something or
We're
getting,
not busy.
we're not busy essentially, right? The second part of that is people, not all people, like all of us, our brain overthinks on purpose. It has a mechanism. So when we overthink about things, our brain is going over past events to prevent us from making mistakes again.
Mm,
But repeating the mistakes or the events or the circumstances and trying to predict how we could make it better next time won't actually solve whatever it is that we're overthinking about. And it's highly common. Like, I cannot tell you how many people are overthinkers. Like, we all suffer from it. I suffer from it sometimes.
yeah.
But the the way to overcome that or work on that is being aware of, why are you overthinking about
Mm,
this? So let's say you're overthinking about a scenario at work and you don't want, just checking in with yourself that, oh, I'm overthinking because I'm afraid of this outcome.
yeah.
Once we acknowledge the fear, then it's much easier to talk about the fear than going through the scenarios.
But why do you assume the worst will happen? Like,
Because we're evolutionarily based to survive, right? So my brain needs to imagine that the world is ending so that I have every possible way to prepare myself from the world ending.
yeah.
And so it's the same thing. So I'm going to go to the worst case scenario because if I go to the highest level of threat, I'm going to have the highest level of protection, even if the threat is much, much smaller.
Mm.
Right. So we're going to think about, we're going to go to that maximum level.
Sometimes people confuses stress with burnout.
Mm.
Especially, we both know when we are teachers. You
Yeah.
were a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm still a teacher.
Yeah.
So sometimes we are stressed. Sometimes we don't want to reach the burnout level.
Mm.
How can we differentiate between these two?
Well, burnout's going to be way more intense for sure. I always think of burnout as stress that's constantly overlooked. So when
Mm,
we first feel the stress building, we usually say, okay, it's okay. I can manage it. I can manage it. I can manage it. But we're not really managing it. We're not doing wellness activities. We're not seeking support. We're not doing all the things that you know that will help you. We're usually just ignoring it.
mm,
And then when we ignore that stress, it usually compounds into burnout. So I always say that even the smallest level of stress should be a signal that I now need to stop and check in with myself. So like, especially, you know, in the beginning of the year, like as a teacher, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Beginning of the year, you're like, okay, we got to get everything done. All the students are back. I'm still feeling a bit slow from the summer. And we're going to get that first surge of, oh, wow, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. We need to stop at that first sign. And then whatever your coping mechanisms are they, is it exercise? Is it lunch with friends? Is it going to therapy if that's something that you're doing in your life?
Close the laptop.
Close the laptop. It could be 15 minutes a day, but those 15 minutes a day that are entirely for you and your well-being, those are going to make the difference between manageable stress and burnout.
That's nice. In our culture, people often say phrases like, be strong, you are stronger than that, or people have worse than your case.
Yeah.
How are these phrases affect our personality or affect our life in general? Even though maybe they mean well.
Yeah. I will say that I know that it always comes from a good place when elders or whoever it is saying those things to us. But unfortunately, the consequence is you are dismissed, right? Even though you're saying be strong, someone has it worse than you, we're taking away the importance of the problem that you are facing, the stress that you are facing. And when it's perceived as rejection, right? So when we say be strong or it's worse, we feel that our problems get rejected. And if someone else is rejecting it, we will reject it. And then it gets kind of pushed to the side. So we have to change the way that we talk about it.
I remember the situation, there was a kid like maybe 10 years old. He was like suffering. I don't know why, but his parents were saying, you are a man, don't cry. You cannot cry. It broke my heart. Like,
Yeah,
this is a very bad
I agree.
type of thinking, right?
I agree, especially for boys. Like there's no difference about the need of emotional expression in children and whether they're boys or girls. It is vital for all of us. We have to make space for those emotions. I always believe that parents are coming from a good place when they're trying to tell their kids, oh, be a man, be this, be that. But again, they're rejecting their child's experience and vulnerability. And usually what that does, it distances the child from the parent. And the child will still be suffering in whatever the problem is, but now they'll be suffering alone.
So, can faith and mental health support each other?
Absolutely.
How?
Absolutely. I think that so much about faith is built on structure. Whatever religion you follow. So there's always structure, and there's always mindfulness, and there's always gratitude. And those are building blocks of mental health. So structure, like therapy, assessment, well-being activities, you need to do them consistently.
Definitely.
Right? We need to keep doing them, right? Faith demands the same thing. Structure, repeatability, and then gratitude. Like Ramadan is coming. We know what it means to be grateful, but again, it's not specific to any religion. Gratitude allows you to step outside of yourself, and see the good in your environment. That's healing as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. So there's so many comparisons. And then I think the last one, the mindfulness, like whatever prayer it is, prayer means that you have to focus on something other than what you're overthinking
about. I just want to move to relationships, because it's a very important topic and everyone is affected by it.
Yes.
Can a relationship affect mental health even though it's not toxic?
Yes.
Tell me how.
So even if a relationship is not toxic, that doesn't guarantee that it's compatible, right? There's no guarantee that relationship, just because it's not an unhealthy or difficult or again toxic, abusive relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right relationship for you. And sometimes our body and our nervous system give us those signals. it will feel like something is wrong, and it'll be really hard to put a
Mm.
name on it, but it'll just come down to incompatibility, and then not being able to decipher that or understand what's going on will then cause a lot of mental health concerns because you're going to wonder, why is this happening?
Because some people, they feel drained by the someone they love or by
Mm,
the relationship.
yeah.
So why do they do that? Like, if you know that it's not compatible, as you said,
Mm,
and it's not the right place for you, why don't you move? Why don't you
mm.
leave?
I think a lot of people, when it comes to relationships, we build this idea about what the relationship will look like.
Mm.
We imagine it to be a certain way, and we assign it a lot of potential because I think, okay, if I'm with this partner, this is what my life might look like. And I love XYZ things about my partner,
Yeah.
and my partner loves XYZ things about me. And if we're together, we could have this beautiful life. But that's, again, it's like this idea on paper, right? So we think that it has a lot of potential, even though we can maybe see in reality that it's not working, that it's not
Mm.
ideal. But we keep kind of, we live in that potential. We live in the, I hope that it'll get like this, and that makes it really hard to leave sometimes because it's not outwardly toxic, as you
Yeah.
said, right? So it can make it hard to figure out.
But sometimes we overthink the tone or the
Mm,
messages or the silence. He's not talking to me, or she
mhm.
didn't text me back.
Yeah,
This means that she doesn't love me anymore.
yeah.
So this is also very concerning.
So, what we interpret in the silence is about our self worth. It's not usually about what the partner is doing or not doing. So, a lot of people will feel that the silence is something that is a rejection of me.
Mm.
They're silent because there's something wrong with me. They are taking really long to reply because they don't love me anymore.
Exactly.
And that's what it is. So when we overthink into the actions of others, it's a moment to think about what we think about
Mm.
ourselves. Because you'll find in some relationships, people do not find themselves thinking about how long the other person is responding. They're feeling more secure in themselves and in their relationship. And then we have what you're describing, and it's really, really common. So it actually is a sign that maybe this person needs to work on their self-esteem, or
Yeah.
because it doesn't usually mean that it's about the other person. It could just mean that something internally is not working.
So you have to work on yourself, find this
Yeah.
mistake. Um, we talked about the reasons,
Hmm.
what is mental health.
Yeah.
I want to talk about solutions.
Mm.
How can we help people uh, making their mental health better? Like, what are the steps?
Mm. There's no one formula. But I think there's lots of big things that we could do, and one is stuff like this. Awareness is amazing, especially like your podcast, you're doing it in another language, right?
Mhm.
Like today it's in English for me, but that means that this information is going to a broader
To
audience.
reach
Ex-
more people.
Exactly. Like it's it's going it's going to hit more people. It's going to kind of, they're going to feel it.
Mhm.
It's really about creating community where we accept that people are going to have a hard time with their mental health, that people are going to have struggles. The biggest thing is for us to no longer reject each other's struggles. Um, well, of course, we shouldn't use mental health as an excuse to, hurt people or cross boundaries, but that conversation is the first part. And then I think knowing what helps people. So it depends. Like for some, like I said, for some people it means that I need to spend quality time with my friends or my family.
Mm.
I need to go, do some kind of wellness activity. I need to go to the gym. I need to cook a meal. I need to close my apartment and not talk to anyone for 4 days.
Whatever they suit them.
Whatever it is. But then it's about, I hope you're talking to your friends and learning, well, what helps you reset, what helps you recharge.
Mhm.
And I'm talking about the everyday challenges of life. The second part is that we slowly start to educate ourselves, and maybe we can have this conversation another day, but educate ourselves on what severe mental illness looks like
Yeah.
and what that looks like. Then, find out what the resources in your community are. Who can you reach out to help these people? Do they need therapy? Do they need emergency contacts? Do they need psychiatry? What do they need? And just being aware of your community and where those resources are and how can you help them. And I think those two things would be the
And speaking
solutions.
about psychiatrists and
Hmm.
psychiatry, people are afraid to admit they are visiting a psychologist or psychiatrist,
Yeah.
especially in our culture.
Yeah.
But I assume it's everyone should have a visit, like to talk to someone
I agree.
specialized in this.
Yeah.
Why they are afraid to admit they are visiting psychiatrists?
I think it comes back to where we started, right? About pride and strength, that if you're going to the psychiatrist, like I've heard this phrase so many times. Oh,
Like, don't tell anyone I came
you're
visiting
I must be crazy. I'm going to the psychologist. Oh, are you crazy? Like when I was studying, people used to say, like, are you becoming a psychologist because you think you're crazy?
So you have to cure yourself.
So and there were so many ideas about it. And that's kind of infiltrated into the culture, right? Like let's say a 5-year-old heard me
Mm,
talk to someone when they said that comment to me about being crazy, right? The 5-year-old doesn't know any better, so it might think like, oh, so it's not good to go to a
yeah.
and then it builds into the culture. So it really comes from the language that we
Mm,
use. But again, it's about that stigma. And I know that the stigma is still very, very strong in our cultures, like Arab culture, South Asian culture. It's still there. But I can see the atmosphere start to change.
I have a personal question.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher, I
Yeah.
have like 30 students in my class.
Yeah.
I'm not just a teacher teaching this concept and leave the classroom.
Yeah.
I want to understand every single student in the classroom, and I'm afraid and worry about their mental health.
Yeah.
This generation, they suffer like in silence.
Yeah.
What are the signs, or what can I do as a
Mm.
teacher to help these students?
Um, the biggest, I think the biggest sign is the like, so there's no specifics, but like the drastic change in behavior. So like when you see a kid that you've known, because teachers have the most remarkable relationships with their
Mhm.
students. You know them in a way their parents and their friends don't
Don't.
know them. And it's beautiful. So when you see a drastic turn, whether it's one way or the other way, whether they're, suddenly extremely on this side or on that side, I think that's the biggest sign that, okay, this child needs someone to check in, even if the signs are positive, right? Because you'll have children that are really, for example, really quiet.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden they're extremely social. And it's a good thing. It's good to see that, but it deserves a check-in because it's very sudden and
Yeah.
it's very different, right? I always say that the biggest thing that we can rely on is your intuition and your
Mm.
gut. Like that I that plays a bigger role in my job than anything else. So you will know when a child is developmentally appropriately exploring boundaries and
Yeah.
doing the things. I know you teach a lot of teenagers, like when they're exploring life, and you will know when your brain will give you the alarm that something is going on here. And I just, especially with all teachers, like trust your gut because you know them better than their
Everyone.
parents
Yeah.
might even.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, just because they show us a different side of
Yeah.
themselves. I really do miss teaching sometimes, but it's a beautiful bond. So trust your gut. That and then of course there's like the signs, if they're withdrawing, if they're really anxious, if they're skipping school withdrawal. But those are the ones that we know from our training.
Yeah.
But I would say trust your gut more than anything else.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We have reached a section or segment called مش بيناتنا, where you
Okay.
have to pick one of these
Okay.
colorful balls and answer the question, whatever it is. Are you ready?
Yeah, yeah, that
Let's do
sounds
it.
fun. I love purple. I'm gonna go with the
That's a
purple
nice
one.
color.
Okay, so I open it.
Press it. Yeah.
Oh, press it up.
Yeah. What's the question?
Okay. Boom. Why does silence hurt more than words?
That's a nice question.
Yeah, I feel like I answered it a little bit though.
Do you want to pick another one?
Yeah, because I feel like we talked
Yeah, we
about
talk about
this. We talked
silence and the
about
messages.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this. I want to answer something. Okay, more fun. I really love this idea. It's so fun. Why is asking for help seen as weakness? Because there's this idea that we have to be super independent and do everything ourselves. And if we have to ask for help, it means that we're not capable of doing it ourselves. And I think we have to remember how much more we can do with community than without.
Mm,
But again, if I ask you for help, it's not usually because I can't do it, it's because I want more support.
yeah,
But we assume that it's the other party usually assumes that it's because we can't handle it ourselves, and it's a cultural and social
definitely.
problem. Yeah, but we're working on it. We're making big changes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay. What message would you give to someone who is listening right now,
yeah.
struggling, feeling alone? What would you
Mm.
say to them?
I would say that you would be surprised to know how many people feel the same way,
Mhm.
and to trust in the community. Like, we have really, really changed our way of thinking about mental health. And so, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling afraid, there's going to be someone out there that is ready to talk to you, to help you. And then there's so many resources, you're an amazing resource. If
Thank
anyone
you.
wants to come out to me, like, there's so many options for people to seek support. And I don't want them to
Uh,
waste that. Yeah. Yeah.
if someone wants to contact you,
Mhm.
message you, or visit your clinic, how can they message you?
So right now I'm working at the psychology center by the lab in Motor City, but they can also follow me on Instagram and send me a DM, and I can send the website or the booking link or whatever they need, and then they can come in and we can set something up.
Thank you so much for this honest conversation.
Thank you. I
Thank you for
really
being
enjoyed
here.
this. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
هيدي كانت حلقتنا لليوم من بودكاست Between Us. إن شاء الله تكونوا انبسطتوا واستفدتوا من هاي الحلقة. بشوفكم الحلقة الجاية من هلأ لوقتها. انتبهوا على حالكم. مع السلامة.